Go ahead.
Yes, all the best swear words. And we're going to use Fault as a case study. So who are we? We are George and Ben. So we're the creative directors. We run Ligatura Films, which is a kind of script-to-screen production service. We've actually worked, I think, with a couple of people in here on various other shorts and projects like that. But basically, Ben and I met 3 or 4 years ago now, and we did a couple of small projects, and then Ben had this IP, Faults, and that's really what got the momentum going. And we're talking about 2 proof of concepts that we made for the IP that we're calling Faults. So we're here this evening to share what worked, what didn't, how we actually made it, where we are now, what we're trying to do with it. I think there's a lot of people in shorts to features, as the name suggests, trying to make the jump, trying to understand how you go from short form to long form. So we're very much on that journey, and hopefully what we have to say will be useful. So I'll throw it over to Ben to say a little bit about himself.
Yeah, so I'm Ben, writer, director, and obviously George's producing partner. As you said, I've been making shorts for about 10 years now. I started off, actually, I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a role. I just wanted to work in film. So I was always just interested in being on set, you know, there's something about that energy. And the idea of creating magic, you know, I really felt that and I think it comes from just being around other people, you know, like-minded people with creative ambitions. So similarly, when I met George, I was kind of at the beginning of my director's journey, and we kind of hit it off, and we were very similarly aligned in what we wanted to do and the stories that we were interested in telling. And I think we did my first short, which we did it on like a shoestring. I think we did it on like £3,000, something like that. Yeah, very, very light crew, very short. I think we only had 1 day to shoot, which was a tragedy in the end, which I'll go into.
We made it work. We made it work.
You make it work, exactly. But from then on, yeah, we kind of knew that we wanted to do something with a bit more longevity, and this is where I sort of put George to the idea of Faults that I've been working on. And then we sort of just together went down that road of how do we get it up there onto the big screen.
And yeah, one of the things we'll be touching upon is like what you need to bring in. So like our production partners for Faults and Euphoria Faults story, like so WRM, IE Ventures, UCA Moses, who will cover in more detail. But I think we can just introduce the world of Faults. So I think I've tested this. If I click play, oh no, I'm clicking play on the actual window here. There we go.
Mary, I know this might be a lot to take in, but this is not some dingy steam room where you can dose off all day. I know it'll be tough at first, but we can help. 15 years in a gasworks. Maybe it's time for a change.
So that was the first proof of concept that we did back in 2024, as that says. And then this year we've just done, thank you, Euphoria, which was a virtual production led, which is the trailer now. There we go, very short and sweet. Okay, so I'll throw it over to Ben to kind of introduce the creative side of Faults, and then we'll move on to what we actually did. So there we go.
Thanks,
Ben,
George.
over to you.
So yeah, basically Faults is dystopian sci-fi drama set in the future of 2130 in London, and basically it's about energy corp called Canary that have found a way to harvest energy from human addiction. And so the idea was we follow this character Mary, who's imprisoned and traumatized from her past, and she's forced to keep a collection of human beings known as doses alive so their chemically induced euphoria can be mined for power. And so, as mentioned, the concept came around my fascination for addiction, both sort of physical and mental. Actually, originally came from this thing here, and how we're all slaves to this little box. So that was my that was kind of the root of it and where it all started. And over a few beers, me and George kind of got into it and found interesting perspectives and viewpoints to sort of tell this story. So if we go, should we go to the next slide, Giorgio? And we can talk a little bit about where it all kicked off. So originally, the idea of Faults was going to be a film. I've long been a lover of cinema, and I think it was after my second film I was like, I want to do another one. I want to start getting into long form. I don't want to be stuck in this sort of circle of just chasing shorts, without a way out. And so when I started Faults, originally it was going to be a sort of a feature film. And then as I was developing it and I was sharing it with friends and my peers, and actually it was a guy called Rob Brown, a very, very successful director, and he said to me, you should think about doing this as a TV show, because the law is so expansive and there's so much inner workings that actually it might be more challenging to do it as a feature, because you've got a lot there that you can do and that you can explore. So that kind of tweaked something. Oh, all right, yeah, maybe I should follow that. So anyway, developed it a bit further, and then sort of came to George. The idea is like, look, I think I've got a rough sort of sketch of how we can introduce this world to an audience, which came in the form of Faults V1 as a short film. So obviously, the first challenge that you're going to face in anything like this is, right, who's paying for it? So I just done my second feature, Meat Free, and basically spent all of that from my own pocket. So it was about £3,000 that I'd spent, from work, and it was tough. It's really hard, especially when you're spending your own money. It really adds a whole nother layer to the process. And it can be difficult, because if if it doesn't get into festivals, if you don't see the results that you want, it can feel really disheartening. Like, why have I spent this money? It feels like a waste. Which isn't the case. I think with any project, there's always things to learn. And so in that way, that money that I'd spent on this was an investment, because an investment in my journey as a filmmaker, and it taught me a lot of valuable lessons about how to tell stories in a certain way and how to be more effective and more useful with the things I had. So myself and George, we put this out there. One of the key things that I think we'll talk about, and we'll go through this a bit more later, but one of the key things over the years of working, I've been really lucky and fortunate to have really influential people in my life that have supported me and put me in the room with certain individuals, really, really backed me and gave me the confidence to sort of push forward and try and make these sort of things. So one of my mentors, Stephen, he'd recently done a project for Netflix for Robbie Williams. And essentially he said, oh, I know this guy who's, working in the TV media space. You need to meet him, have a coffee, and tell him about your project. So he organizes a coffee at the Groucho in London, I think it was. Met this guy, Charlie, wonderful guy. Basically sat down and we told him, look, this is our idea and we want to do it as a TV show. We've never really done TV before. We're both come from film. So, so we're very honest and transparent about our level of expertise, which I think as well is very important, because, sometimes there's this idea of you fake it till you make it. And that might seem great until you get put in the corner where someone asks you a question you don't actually know what you're talking about, and you can look a bit foolish. So I always think it's better just to be honest with people, tell them hey, look, I want to do this. I don't necessarily know, I'm willing to ask you what's the right things, how to move forward with this. So fast forward, how long would you say, George, it took for us to get into the meetings with WRM?
Yeah, so I'll move on to basically looking at the first POC faults, which is as Ben was saying, we kind of shot 2023, 2024, and I would just say off the back of what Ben's touching upon, like having already established our own working relationship, having done those shorts like Meet Free with our own team, and also just having that to then take to the mentors and the kind of essentially our executive team is what they became, meant that we just had a really clear proof of our own work, but also proof that we could deliver. And I think being able to execute on what you'll say is really important. So we came very clearly from that meeting with Stephen and Charlie at WRM and IE, and we said, look, we want to do sci-fi, it's genre, and because it's genre, we kind of have to take that 25K short film benchmark, which is what I say typically. If you're shooting a short film in London and it's a contemporary coming of age, or it's going to be shot in a flat in East London, 25K, you can probably do that. But the moment you're doing genre, then you're talking production design, you're talking GFX potentially. So there's a whole lot you've got to play with. So immediately we knew we had to take that price point and be very transparent about that. And I think that was, for me as a producer, the one thing we had to really fight for hard, is to make sure like this isn't just a short film you can go shoot in woods at a weekend or something like that. It's really going to need a lot of planning. So after the back of that meeting, we were able to come back with Ben's brain and basically map that out. Like Ben's brain's full of all these great creatives, but being able to build that into a clear pitch deck, into your clear mood board references and all that stuff, meant immediately they could appreciate the scope. And I think that's the thing, is like, we want to show that you can actually accomplish something that has a big scope at this level in a short or in a shorter format, as long as you know what exactly you're going for. So we wanted to make sure we had all the production costs covered, and we were really lucky to secure quite early in the team a location manager, a lady called Rosie Sales, and she was absolutely instrumental in making making this 45K go the distance. Because immediately I think we had the first call with her, and it was like, well, we're going to not shoot it in London, because you'll be paying $4,000, $5,000 a day for some East London flat, let alone you want to shoot this lovely picture here, this amazing cave. Good luck trying to find that in London. But secondly, you'd be rinsing all of your location, all your budget on that. So she was like, okay, well, we need to go further afield. And that was not a problem for me. I'm not from London, I'm from West Midlands. So I was like, great, let's get out the southeast of England for once, that'd be great. And we ended up shooting in Manchester and the north of Wales in Wrexham. And that actually worked really well, because we were able, from a production base, essentially have like a 3-hour radius in terms of shooting. So we could shoot in Manchester for some of it, and then we were shooting this lovely quarried cave that you see here in the picture. That was actually in a lovely Welsh valley just outside of Wrexham. So immediately we were identifying where we needed to like shore up, because sci-fi, unless you've got all the sound stages in Shepperton, you're going to struggle to build that world. So we knew the location, if we could find the right location. And Ben had he was like, it's this underground labyrinth, and I was like, okay, great, but where are we going to go? And he's like showing me these amazing caves in like Georgia and Romania. I was like, well, this is good, but we're not going there, aren't we? Not for this, maybe for the feature or for the TV series, but not at this moment. So being able to have a location manager who really got what Ben's brain was saying was just like, I don't think we would have been able to do that. So I think for us, again, already we built in our executive team, and then we built in a really key component with having a really tight locations manager. And even if you are shooting that contemporary London coming of age drama, you can still think about how you can get the best location for whatever you're spending or not spending on that. Like, that's going to really lift your film at this level, or your project. So then we knew once we had those locations worked out and the kind of how we're going to shoot it in this 3-hour radius of Manchester and North Wales, that we could actually deliver. You know, we went to that cave and we were like, yeah, you could feel this is the underground labyrinth of faults that we wanted to create. So we were very confident that we could then just focus on what was the most important thing, which was characterization, and like making sure that even if it looked cool and sci-fi, that the characters were doing what they needed to do. So that was kind of a relief to kind of get that done. And then what we were able to do is go back to the investors and say, you know, this is where we've got. This is maybe like 4 months before we were looking to shoot, and we were still negotiating that final kind of price point. So we were just like massaging the figures in a way. But once I think we showed them like the locations, we did a recce, they were like, okay, they could see it. So there was, you know, the tangibility of that was really clear, and I think it became a bit of a risk mitigation from their point of view. So then we had a crazy shoot. You know, we can tell you all about that in the Q&A, but it was really fun, obviously, working with the limitations of being in a cave, how you power anything in that, and all this kind of crazy stuff. And then obviously in Manchester is really good to film, great crew. That was also really good for us to support northern crew as well and stuff like that, which again, it's so easy to be trapped in the southeast of the UK in the film industry, and I really encourage everyone to think beyond that, because there's so much talent and opportunity that you can tap into. I think we came back, we shot it, looked great. It's like 20 minutes. We showed it to the investors, and it was like, you can immediately see already how this is going to open up a whole ensemble of characters and like the multiple arcs that we were kind of discussing beforehand. So we wanted to make sure that it was really impactful, which I think it really was, because it looked a lot more than what we'd spent. It felt a lot more than, you know, what we were, you know, who was at, you know, it felt like we had a crew of 40 people as opposed to like 12. I think also it goes with saying, like, Ben had already built very good relationships with like a post team as well, in terms of composer, mixing, you know, all these things, which again, when you're doing genre, you know, if you just didn't have a good soundtrack or it didn't have the score to match the visuals, it can be a bit maybe a bit underwhelming. So you'd already again identified, Ben, the kind of the post team you wanted on that, and that was really good as well.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, jump on that point, George. I think this leads on to a little bit the Rosie story. When you're doing something like this, every penny spent is like, oh my god, like can we spend this? Is it right? Is, you know, and something that we learned very early on was like, put money where you really believe it's going to be worthwhile. So we knew locations were like paramount. It was so important to get the right place, and we knew that spending that money on having Rosie on board was an expense that I would have paid 10 times over, because what we were able to get out of that small amount of money in the long run, you know, not just the locations, but also the relationships with Rosie moving forward. She's actually collaborating with us on other projects. She's in touch with another friend of mine who's a director who's working, you know, so from one small little idea or gesture, you build something much grander. And I think this is kind of one of the points I love to make, is just like, if you really believe in something and you can see its value, don't be afraid to put your energy into that, you know. Me and George already we were stretched thin, very very thin, and so we really heavily relied on our team at certain points. You know, we really couldn't have done half of what we achieved without them. And it goes to this point that having those relationships there really can help you, especially when it gets tough.
For sure. And I think like the moment we were able to show like the post team, like some of the dailies we'd got, like I know our composer Adrian Long, amazing composer, was more than happy to, like, you know, maybe come down on like his normal rate or whatever, because he just wanted to be part of the project, because it looked the dog's bollocks, as it were. There you go, my first swear of the talk. How many can we get through? But I think that's really important, because then you're able to onboard more people as you go. And I think that's really the story that we want to kind of reiterate with Faults, is just when we had that POC one done, we've got this massive onboarding product that we can then take to the other sponsors, which is basically, and our partners, which is basically what happened for the second POC. So fast forward, like maybe 6 months after we, got the post done, obviously we weren't intending to take the POC to festivals. It wasn't really made in that kind of mindset. It was more for developmental purposes, to go back to our executive team, to have more of a calling card with other studios, other investors. So we were very keen already to kind of like shop it around in a more kind of distribution sense of the word. Like, look, this is what we've done with £40. Now give us £120 and look what we could do. So through again another producer connection, Benji at Raw Inventive, he had it was very strange because we had said at the start of the year, Ben and I, we were looking to do VP because obviously VP is very in vogue. But more importantly, when you think about genre and you think specifically about sci-fi, we all know about like the Mandalorian and the use of the dome there was just, well, let's try and see how we can lock into VP, because that could be a really obvious budget saving exercise in terms of taking it to commissioners and saying, okay, rather than having to shoot in Bulgaria or Romania or even back in Wrexham in this lovely cave, we can actually maximize a lot of the shoot in a kind of VP world. So Benji,
and I would have loved to go to Romania, by the way.
Yeah, of course. It's no shade in Romania, great locations, but in terms of like suiting it for the BFI, UK tax problems, all this stuff. So they had said they were looking to collaborate with UCA, so that's University of Creative Arts, and they had a VP stage. I think what had happened during COVID is all of these institutions and organizations and places were like, well, let's invest in VP since we can't go out on location because we're all in lockdown. So they had this VP stage, but from what we could gather when we went to go see them, it was just being used as like rehearsal room for their drama students.
George, would you mind elaborating a little bit on what is the VP, which is basically...
Yes, yeah. So the virtual, like, you've all seen Mandalorian, and he's on Tatooine, but he's not really on Tatooine. He's on the sound stage, but it's got the virtual rendering background of the Tatooine skyline and the desert and two moons and little Grogu or whatever. So it's like instead of a green scene, you actually have LED screens with your background. Yes, so it is predominantly LED tech based, and then you tend to be using something like Unreal Engine, like a games engine, to then be live rendering. But what's really nuts is you'll have the ability to live adjust. So you could see in the trailer with Euphoria, we go from this very dark, almost like prison cell, to what you can see on the screen, this kind of crazy nowhere space as she's kind of going under the effects of the drug. And so that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to go and do something that was like, how can we maximize like a complete whiplash in terms of going from one place to another by using the trick of VP? Because VP, immediately you can go, all right, well, we're on a jungle, let's go to the desert. Boom. And you can bring that up. You can bring that up on the Unreal Engine, and you can render it in as you would with, like, when you're loading up the different video game levels, for example, is a way of thinking about it. But we didn't want to just be like, okay, we can do a nice like sci-fi skyline and then suddenly we're in the jungle. We wanted it to be rooted in the character. And obviously, because as Ben's saying, Fault is about addiction, it's about the drug use. So we wanted to use that device of wanting to escape a really horrible world, the world of faults of the character, and then going into what it would be like to kind of be tripping on the substance of youth. So we were chatting to UCA with their point of contact there, Lauren, who basically is part of this organization called Gain Nexus, which is all the other universities looking at how they can use the emerging tech like virtual production, XR, VR, all of those new emerging techs, and like come up with ways of making it into the next pipeline in terms of the skill share for the students. So they were like, well, we want to invite industry professionals to come and try and break the tech, really. So we were like, this is great, we can do this. So we're like, okay, well, let's take Faults into this university, and have like a weekend, and let's see what we can come up with. And it was amazing. Like, we were able to really tap into their team, obviously their teaching team, and all of their brain bar that they have that are running the Unreal Engine, but also the students. So we were able to get students onto the project, and they can use this as part of their final project, or any of their kind of almost like work experience. And of course, they were amazing and had the best ideas and knew way more than we did about how to utilize this tech. So it was a real real clear knowledge transfer. And then I think one thing we should also flag is the way the VP works with the old conventional camera system is really important. So again, we didn't want to just be like, okay, well, here we have the VP guy against the screen, and it's all a bit flat, and then they're just walking like this against the screen. We wanted, Ben was like, no, we're going to have this amazing camera jib movement, and it's going to come up. We want to root the characters falling into the going under the drug. We need to feel that as a movement, as well as just a visual change. So our DOP Bear was like, well, great, how are we going to do this? And what was really important was to know the limits of how much you can move the camera before you start having issues with the tech, because it's doing live tracking. So every time you move the camera, the rendering background has to match the focal length, or Ben, you're much more techier than I. You can talk about that. But one of the things we had to do was work with the tracking system, which was the company called Moses. So what was really good is we were able to send, because we actually had been talking to Moses randomly anyway, and it turned out their system was the one in the room, and we're like, this is perfect. So again, because we were already finding those partners, they were like, oh, okay, you're doing this. So they took all of the brain bar, i.e. the people who are controlling the live rendering for the Unreal Engine, to their studios in Greenwich for a week, for a couple of days, to basically train them up so they knew how they were going to really maximize what we were asking them to do with the tech. So again, it was there was a lot of amazing synergy. And I think it's because we were able, at every instance, when we were trying to talk about the project, just refer back to the first POC and just say, well, watch this, because this gives you a really strong idea of what the world is, what we're trying to do, and the importance of the characters wanting to escape through this kind of addictive drug. So we could send that to Moses, we could send that to UCA, we could send that to everyone, and they'd be like, oh yeah, this is, as I said, the dog's bollocks. Let's get involved.
Beep.
Exactly, Beep. So we I guess what was really good about this version, because we'd already made the investment on the first POC, is we were able to essentially leverage what was a grant-based system. So I think it was, if we did a proper budget, and I'd say it's probably valued around 25k, but in actual grant money, it was probably maybe 12k, that in terms of where the money came from. And then obviously we were leveraging some of our existing relationships for the conventional stuff in terms of camera hire, lighting, and all that. So again, our network and our net worth was really important, because they wanted to get involved, because we could go to the camera team and we can say, you want to do, who's done VP stuff? And obviously they hadn't, and they were like, well, cool, I'll do VP stuff for short films rates. This is great, I'll give you a weekend of my time. So that was really, yeah. But do you want to say more about?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we've learned, and again, this is, I think, really important when you're going into these sort of projects. It's understanding that everybody needs to walk away with something. It's not about us coming in saying, hey, we're going to use your resources and we're going to have this great product and thank you very much, see you later. That doesn't, it's not really a mutual partnership in that way. It's not a collaboration. It's you wanting something and getting something for nothing. So what was really enticing for us was the fact that obviously part of the deal that was already embedded in the grant was that we had to speak a little bit about the process. We had to bring students on board. So in this case, we had a professional crew, some that we've been working with for years, and having a group of students who never necessarily worked on a film before step on. And some of their roles were really, quite important. We had costume, we had props, we had set, sorry. And then you might hear, well, hang on, you were using virtual production, why would you need set? So obviously, just like when you're layering your shots normally, you still need to have depth by utilizing your foreground, your mid, and your background. So in our case, we knew we were going to have the background as either the sort of dream sphere, which has got that golden sort of world you saw, or we had the cell that our sister is in. And the idea was you needed a practical element, something to ground the character in the world, and something for you as an audience to go, oh yeah, I get it. Okay, it's not just like CG. It's it's not just virtual. There's something there. And the idea is with virtual production is you need to sort of trick the viewer to believe that what you're seeing is not actually a VP wall, it's a real environment. And so one of the tricks that we used to do that was creating part of the set. So we built this sort of bed. We had some walls built that we actually didn't end up using. We ended up needing to find these floor risers. So I think we ended up having to build like 10 feet, something like that, 15 feet extra. And without that, we wouldn't have been able to shoot, because this virtual production wall, we've got a BTS video that we'll share later for you, so you can see a bit more of this process. But it's quite small when you compare it to like the Mandalorian ones, which is it's huge. It's like a warehouse. This is more like a small studio. Something like a drama space. So in order to really get the camera there, and I want a 50mm portrait shot of somebody, I can't do that if I'm only 8 feet from the wall, because there's not enough room between us to sort of get that feeling. You're going to know that, oh, that's not quite infinity, because infinity point on 50mm is slightly further back. So it's just those little lessons as well that we had to really think about when we were going into working on this sort of format. But yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway was like the fact that everybody could kind of get something out of this. UCA obviously had a great case study. They could go back and get procure more investment to make their virtual stage bigger and better and upgrade the tech a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think Moses were like, okay, we're going to make sure we give you the latest version.
Yeah, they upgraded
so we
what
did
they call like a star tracker, it? Which is basically the thing that connects the camera to the background wall. So you have the image there, and then you have the camera. Oh, sorry, like that. So as the camera moves like that, obviously this is going to move with it, so you get the correct parallax.
Guys, sorry to interrupt. Can I ask one thing? Can you take us a little bit through, because we covered a lot of the production, but we haven't said very much, and I know a little bit by speaking to George about how you found your investors.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can tell us a little bit about the after, because so how you raise the finance, but also what are the next steps, basically.
Yeah, I think obviously we know we've all I'm sure in this group made different kind of productions, and we know the trials and tribulations there. But the main thing to highlight is this is like years worth of strategic partnerships that, as Ben mentioned at the start, where, from his mentors who brought him on to a direct conversation with WRM, and that's obviously they're like a portfolio investment company, who were looking to branch into like a media wing of their company. And then with the POC number one done, we were able kind of to set ourselves a provocation of looking for virtual production. So as I say, we had already been talking to companies like Moses, Garden Studios, Perfect Pixel. And then when the UCA presented itself, because we had this POC that we could readily show, we were able to leverage that and go back to Moses. And it just so happened that they had their system already in that organization. So I think we knew from doing their first POC, we wanted to bring more people on board. So obviously that's traditionally, you can go back to the camera rental places or the lighting places and all that kind of traditional, you know, look what we've done. Wouldn't this be great if you could support this, you know, as first-time filmmakers or, you know, emerging talent? So we, you know, always been massaging those relationships, you know, since we made our first short, you know, back 4 or 5 years ago now. But as soon as we got that POC one, it was like, who else can we bring to the table? So I'd say, like, most notably, that was going into fields that we hadn't considered before, which was like this higher educational field with UCA, where there's a clear need to connect the next generation of talent to these other production methods, most notably the virtual production. So I think that's where we really maximized it for this case study. And so it obviously was really a learning for everyone, as Ben just touched upon. And so now, expanding the scope, which is where we're at. So we have these 2 amazing products which give us very clear vertical slices of the world of faults. We were able to, obviously, did a screening earlier this month, in fact, at the Rich Mix, which I think some of you attended. We had like over 200 people come down and watch that, which was obviously amazing to have that amount of eyes on an original IP in any in anything at the moment. Is amazing. And we also invited like our curated VIP list, so we were able to go back to our execs and say, well, look, we've got these amazing 2 products, we've got the Prosecco at the bar, who can you bring along? So we spent probably like 2 or 3 months over the summer just working out, you know, that VIP list rather, invite them down, approaches. And so now, this month after the screening, we're doing a whole bunch of follow-ups. And essentially, in terms of the nuts and bolts, we need to take this story. We know we've got our pilot, as it were, which is essentially what the POC explores. But we need to assemble, because it's TV, the writer's room. You know, it's going to be an 8-part series. We're going to have to divide and conquer, and we're going to have to bring in people who have that skill set and experience to adapt it for, you know, a 30 to 45 minute format, which is obviously very different from, you know, feature film and stuff like that. So it's really key now that we secure further development funding, so essentially we can bring in people to take on board spec scripts to make sure we've got it into a place that it's ironclad tight, that we can put it in front of the right producers, studios, and of course talent to be in it. Because obviously, I think the biggest difference perhaps between features, you know, and obviously there's the whole indie market, which even in this day and age still exists. With TV, because of the scale of investment, is just so longer and more, you need to bring in an experienced roster of players who are going to have that kind of risk mitigation from their end. So I think, you know, we want to contact people who've already been doing it in terms of writing, people who've already been doing it in terms of casting. It's obviously an ensemble piece. So we've now got a very clear leverage in terms of, as I think one of the hardest things you run into when you're pitching genre is, well, what is it? You can't just, you know, I have to explain the world, I have to put you in that world. And I think what we have really done with these 2 POCs is we can immediately put anyone or potential audience member into that world. And then secondly, the other thing is we can then use that to say, well, look, more importantly, look who has already backed us, because we have this list of partners already, which I think are very, like, for me, that's the biggest achievement, is look who we've been able to onboard as we go. So I think that's where we are. You know, we still haven't, you know, we've got a long way to go. I think Ben and I would be the first to admit that. We've got a clear idea of what that would be financially and what that would be in terms of a roadmap. And, you know, we are now looking to secure the next kind of level of high investment individuals or writers and talent that can help us make it into that format of like an 8-part series. And I think that's where we are. It's, again, I think, yeah, as it says at the bottom, like, it's not just about proving the story, which I think we've done. It's about opening the door and building a network, and it gives our existing partners something to show, but it also to clear a table, especially now we can say we've got it VP ready, we've got it can be very British based, which is obviously with a lot of the softer funding and tax incentives that we're aware up here, which is again a thing that we've always fought from day one, making it make sense for our investors as well. If we can immediately say we can offset their investment return, that's obviously a no-brainer. So I think that is the next steps, which I've kind of just covered. So we will be sharing these afterwards. We'll have a look at or over there.
Guys, I was wondering if we should slowly open it to questions.
Yes, we can do that.
Anybody? I mean, I've got another couple of questions, but I don't want to be the only person that asks questions. So if anybody has got a question, now is the time, guys. No one?
Oh, yeah, well, I've got a question.
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, why it's always me who's got a question. So, now Manchester, don't they offer some sort of rebate or some sort of discount on locations? Aren't they very sort of film friendly? Did you find that helped you?
I would
Yeah,
say
absolutely.
Rosie absolutely gave us such a good solid in, specifically with the Manchester location. We shot at the old tram station, which is right central. So that first slide of her walking through is from there, and they use that location for all kinds of live events, photo shoots, fashion, and everything. But I think Rosie really helped us to land it, to essentially get like a good deal on it. But I know obviously there's the whole regional north of England funding that you can apply for, but again it has to be in terms of how you've stacked your creative team. And I think because writer, director, producer was all Southeast, I don't think we're eligible for it. But of course there's ways around that if you know how to stack your team in the correct way. But yeah, for sure, like, I mean, I would really recommend Manchester. Like, the crew were phenomenal. We obviously were also able to rent up there as well because they've got good rental houses. So there's, it's the second city for a reason, I'd say.
Well, actually, it's not technically true, is it? We had to bring it up.
But yes, yeah, we had to bring it up.
We had to bring it up because I had a relationship with Procam Take Two, who aren't with us anymore. But it comes back to my earlier point, because I knew someone from 2 years ago, I could just ring them up and say, look, guys, listen, I've got this project on. This is how much money I can afford. What can you do for me? And I went to like 3 places, and I think, rightly so, they were like, we can't help you on this one. Understandable. It's, it was a push. I think essentially we were asking for 25k worth of gear.
Yeah.
And I think I managed to get it for 4.5 with that. Yeah, which is unbelievable. It's unreal, and you could shoot a full-on high-end feature with the kit we had. It was insane.
That's the one. Stack your value, not just the cash.
Yeah, and this is it. Like, honestly, like, for all of this stuff that we've been talking about, really, the one thing I'd like everyone to take away is, like, go out there and meet people, man. I promise you, it will change everything. It'll open up all the doors. Like, also the confidence to be able to go to these locations, people, and say, hey, look, we know it's X amount, but can you do it for this place? And be really confident in what you're asking for. For example, with Rosie, we knew at the Manchester one, well, they're not actually that busy, so they kind of need the place to be filled. They need it to be in use, and it's a big, expensive space to run. So when you start thinking, if you, as a producer, if you start thinking in that sort of mindset, it's easier to go in with that ask because you understand what you're asking. If that, can I have it for free or can I have it cheaper? It's like, no, I understand.
Because it was Easter bank holiday, so we were like, well, what, you guys, you're not using it for Easter bank holiday. No one's here, so let's. Yeah,
that was our game. Yeah,
let's get that extra day.
And WRM, did they give you the full 45k or did you get other grants?
No, we actually asked for the full originally, because we were like, this is how much it's going to cost, and again, just being super transparent and not being afraid to ask, because it sounds like a lot of money, right? I mean, it is a lot of money. 50k is a hell of a lot of money. for someone like us as well at the time. It's like, wow, I'm asking for that. And they came back and said, look, we'll give you half. Great, amazing, unbelievable. We can go. And then we, through other strategic partners, we were basically able to raise the other 20. One being one of my mentors is companies through IE Ventures, so it's a venture capitalist. So they were really helpful in giving us that to basically get over the line with post-production, and then we were able to secure another 10K through another private investor. But you know, again, it took us a long time to recover from that, if I'm being honest with you. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, we got this money and off we go. Like, no, I think, you know, I had to pay some of that back. Obviously, we had to wait for the tax credit, which is maybe what you were asking earlier, Moto. Like, we were able to secure
I'm just
Okay.
the tax credit aside. I was just
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't do BFI and all of that. You literally went to investors.
We did private investment through seed,
Yeah.
but we were able to secure BFI tax credit after the fact.
Yes.
It was great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you know, so that helps.
If you didn't do that, it wouldn't make sense.
No,
I would encourage everybody, like, when you're doing a feature at this size, and you've got to, because it's like you're leaving money on the table otherwise. You know, that's potentially your pay check at the end of the day after everything's said and done.
That's Enrico's main mantra.
Yeah, 100%. Don't leave money on the table, guys. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Next question from Arnaldo, and then Bill.
Hi guys, I just want to know, what stage are you now with your project? Like, do you have script ready? Like, how packaged is your project now?
So I'd say we have the pilot, which, you know, we're always refining, and we have a pretty robust series Bible. But I think, as I mentioned when we were rounding up, like, because we're looking to get it into 8-part series, it's a lot harder to just compartmentalize what that will be, because, you know, I'm sure, you know, your Amazons and your VODs will have a preference of how they want to roll things out. So we need to do more R&D to work out the best writing team to present that in the best way. Because, you know, like, sometimes they you know, release them where it's all at once, and that's almost like, you don't want it just to be an 8-part film that's stretched out. Wouldn't recommend that. Other times, I think when they release them in the kind of almost like 3-part mini arcs, like Andor was really successful at that. So I think we're trying to work out now the best writing team and the best way to unfurl the way the story needs to be told. So, like, we're looking for experienced writers and producers who know what's the best way to
producers is the big one as well, Naldo, because basically development producers and showrunners are like the two key honchos, right, when it comes to making a TV show. So your showrunner is going to be like your boss, you know, your the Valor, the one who's going to be pushing the project, who's going to lay down their arms to all these streamers and say, you need to buy this, it's so good. But it's as I said, George mentioned, it's taken a long time to understand the different models, because in TV there's so many different ways, as George said, you know. It's so different and varied to film, which is what makes it exciting, but also a bit more of a challenge. So you need to be a little bit more robust, and things
I think
even in
the time that we started doing this, like the attitude to like streaming is going to solve all our problems. So now it's not going to solve all our problems. It's like, you know, it's very much the same as, oh, the movie industry is dying every year kind of thing. So now I think people are waking up to that streaming is in the same cyclical nature. So, you know, you've just got to keep that resilience in terms of identifying the right way to tell the story. So in terms of the immediate packaging, yes, we've got the POCs, we've got the scripts, we've got the series Bible. We now need to have the rest of the team bring it to the right people in the way that it needs to be told, from like more of a kind of nuts and bolts kind of way, I'd say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Bill, unless Arnaldo, you got something else, or maybe
No, nothing.
Thank you, Bill.
Hey guys, apologies if you've kind of already covered this, but with on the financing side, when you've gone to people for financing, what do they expect back for that? Like, because obviously they could put money in and then the project might not go anywhere. How does that work? Because you're obviously asking quite a lot of money. So
yeah. So obviously that's especially when we're going to people who aren't necessarily in the industry as the kind of first port of call, it's just a much clearer investment return conversation. And there are the instruments, the financial instruments that you can use, the SPVs and such like that, which I would recommend you have that agreed upon as you go into those meetings, so you can offer essentially stake into the LTD, into the IP, and then there are various. We've built in with our other producer Joey, like at various stages where our execs or additional producers can look. Well, if they sell it, they're going to be banking a producer's commission off that. So we've kind of based that on other products that have been sold in that market in terms of getting commissioned. So we can say to our investors, well, if you've given us 25k, you're going to make that at point of greenlit, so that it kind of incentivizes them to be doing that.
I see.
And do you have a cap for that as well? Because you could have somebody put in a small amount of money at the beginning and have quite a large chunk to something like big.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously we're talking now for the POCs as a seed investment, and we are now at stage 2 development, which is what we're calling it. We can reopen that investment for the initial investors, for example. So we can go back to WRM and IE and say, cool, do you want to give us more? Then please do. And then we can obviously give them more stake or more equity in the company. But I guess what's really amazing was when you go to people necessarily outside of film, we've all been in that BFI soft money shuffle, where you have to sometimes I don't think Folks would have ever got any soft money, because when was the last time soft money gave genre any money? It's not going to happen, unfortunately. So we didn't even bother to go down that much, because you're going to be compromising the creative and compromising. They're going to just see like that genre. That's not feasible. We can do your East London flat. That's fine. London-based drama. Cool. We'll give you money for that. But so I think that's why we had to build it, and we still are building those partnerships, because of as we said at the start, there's the ambition, but it's about finding the way to get that scope in a more achievable mindset.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you. And sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Apologies if this comes off the wrong way, but I think for like a lot of us who are trying to get bigger projects off the ground, and it hasn't happened yet, you need you need income to keep you going, whatever. So do you guys have kind of like regular work that's separate from this, and how do you balance kind of your creative passion for your projects and having an income and sort of actual life as well?
Sure, absolutely. Like, well, so when I met Ben, I was working a lot with the National Theatre, kind of like doing their broadcast and film support there. And Ben, I think, was typically like also freelancing and stuff. So we've continued to freelance in the more kind of corporate side of things in terms of video production. We have like a sister company called Curious Thing, which kind of presents more client-facing work in terms of like advertising.
So you separate those, then you have the
I think sometimes when you're Ligatura films now, I think is really much more like the projects we've done are more creative, are more like narrative based, are more towards like festival circuits and that kind of portfolio building. That's not to say we have never given an invoice of Ligatura films for like shooting, a live performance or something like that. But we decided probably halfway through that journey to kind of split how you sell yourself, because I think I think when you're trying to go to eBay or Amazon and you're trying to quote them because you're going to go and do you're going to produce a live event for them, they don't care about your science fiction. Rightly so, do they? Even though I'd argue the skill sets of people management, budget management, crisis management, all of that stuff is of course transferable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're fortunate that we've been able to continue working within video production to support film production.
It's interesting because I've literally just split my client side and my own project side.
Yeah.
Because I did have them mixed, and I think it wasn't helping.
I think it's just, imagine just how people land on your
Yeah.
website. And I think at the end of the day that people don't care what your companies are called, right? But it's how you it's I think sometimes if you're having to go through maybe like an agent at an agency and they're like, oh, I know George and he works for Ligatura, and they Google you on Instagram and they can see this science fiction, they'll be like, well, that's not I need a documentary style interview that looks nice. And I'm like, well, if I can make that look nice, this amazing cave in Wales, then don't worry about your documentary interview. But I get it.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Declan?
This question a bit more for Ben, I think, because it seems like the big starting point for you was like the networking and your mentors. I just wanted to know, one, how did you find them, and two, who are they? Are they like fellow directors or different people from the industry?
Yeah, thank you, Declan. A bit of a mixture, to be honest with you. And it comes from so I'm neurodivergent, and when I was younger, I was a bit at school, sort of 16. Wasn't great at making friends, didn't have a lot of friends, didn't sort of know how to communicate in the way that they were used to. So that was a bit of a challenge for me. And then I didn't work in like the industry for ages. I think it was 24 when I started, sort of 23, like officially, like properly. But before then, I've been working in pubs and doing the normal day-to-day jobs because you need money, right? You've got to survive. And through that process, I was just like, I'd meet people, I'd listen to their stories, I'd have a bit of banter back and forth, and that really built my confidence up. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, these are just human beings, man. You just have a little chin wagon. And then you get your regulars and they start buying your drinks, and then you feel really like, oh yeah, they're quite nice. Anyway, so from that really gave me the skills and the confidence that when I was going into I wanted to dive into filmmaking, I already kind of knew that you have to be almost like a bit annoying. Like that sounds really counterintuitive, but like one of my friends, now mentors, TJ, who I met on a music video shoot, and again, I was doing this thing for free for my brother, and Terry was also doing it for free. So we both just came to help. And then it ended up being like, oh, I'm actually a film director. I'm doing the shoot in France later this year. Do you want to come and help me? I was like, yeah. So I got to shoot a film in the south of France for 10 days. It's one of the best shoots of my life. So it's little things like that. I think opening yourself up and just being a little bit like annoying and persistent and being like, yeah, I'm here. I want to do it. I think is like a superpower, really. And it's basically just grown from there. So put myself from one group into another situation. You meet someone from that, something happens, you go again. Eventually, you just find your people. So Stephen, one of my mentors, he's one of the directors for a company called IE Music, who they do like music management. So it's not even directly really related to what I'm doing necessarily, but it's about having those people that give you the backing and the confidence and opening those doors for you as well.
Okay, nice one.
So hopefully that was useful for you.
Yeah. It was good. Thanks.
No worries, man.
So our hour is finished, but if you gentlemen are happy to carry on for another 5.
I'll be for another 10 minutes or so if anyone's got
Okay.
any more questions.
Right.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
No, and my question is, so you want to put together your team, your writer's room, your show, all of that. Don't you need to go through agents? Do you have agents yourself?
We definitely would need to go through agents, I'm sure, for some of the writers, for sure. We don't have any agency representation ourselves. So we are looking, we're looking to talk to the right people and are happy to go through agents to get there. It's just part of the process. In the other projects that we're working on in terms of casting, that's just what you would do, and you put yourself out there. So now obviously with this from the back of the screening, and we've got all these various VIPs or people of interest we want to circle back to, it's different levels of how warm the relationship is and how warm the rapport is, and somebody's inbox can be very hard to get into. As Ben was saying, if they came down to the screening or we've already put a face to the name, you just meet them for a coffee and stuff like that. So they're just, I think also, like, you can contact these people through other means as well, like social media as well. So there's ways to navigate it if you're finding you're getting no response. But also, as like Ben was saying, being persistent with agents also pays off. Like, you know, as long as you're polite and like you can circle back every couple of weeks or every couple of months, and you just keep updating them. Like, and that's kind of what we're doing with Faults, is like, well, now we've done this, and go back to these other people, and now we've done this, and you know, they can't deny the work. That's what I always say. You can't deny the work.
And don't take a no as a definite as well. A no is just a no for now. It doesn't mean 6 months, 1 year.
Definitely.
Like, you know, until someone literally tells me to do one, I'll keep coming back.
Also,
you know,
Even
in
then,
the
because why
American
not?
in the American system, Ben, you would be the showrunner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are.
Your
You're the head salesman at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Like,
and
that's it.
I think we would like to position ourselves as the showrunners. We just know in the British market, you're going to have to bring in the people that have done it before, because it's a much more compressed market, I guess.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'd love to take it out to like things like AFM in the States and stuff, where I think, as you say, that kind of has a bit more.
In the American model, you have your producer who does all the and then, you know, it's the writers who become the showrunners and sort of also the producers, in order to keep the vision clear.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that story with the guys with Stranger Things. You know, they were shopping it around for ages because everybody loved the IP, but they didn't want them to do it because they didn't know who they were, and it's just like
they hadn't done anything, literally.
So, kind of in that similar situation where it's like, we get it, like we've done shorts and we can show our body of work and we can it speaks for itself, but until you're in that, until you're at that level in their head, it can be a bit tricky. So it's a lot. I think you just got to accept that it's a long investment progress, and you've got to love that. Especially for TV. Some of these TV ideas are taking close to a decade to kind of get done. So you've got to be patient and be confident that it's got value.
Yeah. I mean, Coppola said no is just a postponed yes.
Well, exactly, and I think the industry is about going around and collecting the no's, and there's a really good way of collecting no's, which can become we'll come back to you later kind of stuff. If you just take it as a rejection, then, you're not. It's not that. It's just like, well, again, like I think with what Declan, you asking about mentors, because Ben had been building up that relationship with the likes of Stephen and other people, they were investing in him. They're not investing, in Faults. Who knows? I mean, maybe they like it, maybe they don't, but they're investing in Ben as a creative and as a person who can go up and show up and execute what he's going to do. So I think that's what I always say to any of my directors is, like, when you find yourself pitching an idea, you're not pitching an idea, you're selling yourself. And
you're selling yourself, yeah.
And that doesn't need to be sleazy or whatever, but like, people like you, they're going to be interested in you. So if you get a no, you come back 4 months later and say, oh, it's me again. Look, in that time I've shot this short, or I've done this, or I'm doing this. People get interested in that. They get interested in your journey, not necessarily.
They buy into the story, don't they? It's
exactly.
It's like the seller story. It's the same. It's literally, it's just psychology. If you can, if people want to be something, oh, you were here and now you're here in this 6 months and I didn't help you. Oh, maybe I need to jump on now. The train's moving. And it's a great analogy to use for when you're making a film too. It all takes that one person to just help get it out. The train just gets a little bit of momentum. Once the train's moving, boy, do people love to jump on,
Yeah, and I think like the first POC really made it capable for us to go and just like you say, we're like, oh, you guys are great, cool. And most of us were like, oh yeah, you guys know what you're doing. So it's just like, they could see it, they wanted to be part of it. So I think
because you delivered something, so it's important that in those months when you go away, you actually make something, and so you guys have proven yourself. So now they can trust you. You built a track record, which is what they wanted.
You got to deliver 100%, Rico. Yeah, and you can always what's that saying? If you shoot for the stars, you might reach the moon, which I like to try and keep with me. Yeah, and I always, even after all this stuff I've done, I still look at it and go, I could have done better every single time without fail. I've never made anything. I think, well, I've just gone, oh yeah,
that's a typical director. So there you go.
I think it's just creative, isn't it? But it's also a positive, because if that pursuit of excellence is what keeps driving you to strive to be better, right? Like if you just went, oh yeah, that's it, I've hit my peak, then where do you go from there? You know, that's it. So yeah, there is a benefit to that way of thinking as well, I think.
Okay, great. Well, I think we've covered a lot. That's been quite amazing. Enrico?
Great. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, George. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was a great turnout, which I'm really pleased about because we did it quite, not our usual build up. So well done, guys. You've been wonderfully received. So thank you.
We'll take you for wanting to stay warm on a cold November any day.
And now we can go and have a nice drink.
Yes. We will share the presentation PDF.
So if anybody would like the presentation, and I'm keeping in the recording, get in touch with me or Mirto, and we'll share the slides with anybody that wants them. Thank you, guys. Thank you, George. Thank you, Ben.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
I'll see you soon. And if anybody would like to remember, we have our Christmas event on the 3rd of December at Elysee, our usual place for networking. If you haven't been, it's near Tottenham Court Road. Very nice Greek restaurant. We have our own separate room. And then next week, actually, we have a big distribution debate. I don't know if you guys want to join us again, just as spectators. This time, we're going to open it up to distribution of film, television, streamers, YouTube, vertical productions. So new ways of distributing content. Same place, same time. Thank you, everybody.